Right now, you probably have like a dozen browser tabs open in your brain.
Oh, at least a dozen.
Yeah. A looming work project, a massive life decision you keep putting off, or, even just an unread text from a friend you haven't had the energy to reply to.
Right, and we wear our ability to juggle all this complexity like a badge of honor.
We really do. It feels like having 50 background apps running on your phone, just slowly draining the battery until you are completely exhausted by 2 p.m.
Yeah, that is the perfect way to describe it.
And we just accept this as the cost of modern living. But what if I told you that complexity is, well, a complete illusion? Like, what if there is actually no such thing as a difficult problem?
I mean, it sounds absurd on its face.
Totally absurd.
Because we are so conditioned to believe that life is inherently difficult, right? And that surviving it requires this immense, stressful, continuous effort. But if we actually examine the architecture of the things that overwhelm us, we find something surprising.
So we are going to force quit all those background apps today.
What?
We are jumping into a deep dive on some translated excerpts from a really fascinating philosophical text. It's called The Path of Simplicity and Small Beginnings by Sweifeng, and it was edited by Kinyu.
It's a fantastic text.
It is. And our mission for this deep dive is to extract the wisdom from this source to help you decode how focusing entirely on the micro, like the absolute smallest tasks, can actually resolve the macro, life's big, overwhelming problems.
Yeah, this text fundamentally flips the script on how we perceive effort. It suggests that by recalibrating our attention to the absolute immediate present, the overwhelming future simply stops being a threat. It is honestly a manual for cognitive relief.
And I can promise you, by the end of this conversation, you will have a completely new toolkit for dealing with information overload and daily stress. And the best part is, it starts with the simplest things imaginable.
It really does.
But to fix our overwhelmed lives, we first have to fundamentally redefine what the word difficult actually means, according to Zhu Feng.
Right. So the author posits that complexity is always embedded in simplicity. He writes that a towering building starts from the ground, and a masterpiece begins with a single character.
Right. Trees grow into forests, tiny drops accumulate into ocean.
Exactly. Therefore, by consistently focusing on simple tasks, complexity vanishes. He goes so far as to state that there are no big, difficult, or complex matters in the world, only small, easy, and simple things.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because it makes me think of zooming in on a high-resolution digital photograph.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Right. If you stand back and look at a massive, say, 4K image of a bustling city, it is this massively complex web of visual information.
Just millions of details.
Millions of colors, intersecting shapes, dynamic shadows. And if I told you to recreate that image all at once, you would just be paralyzed.
You wouldn't even know where to start.
But if you zoom all the way in until that image breaks down into its absolute smallest component, what is it? It's just a single solid colored square, a pixel.
Right.
And painting one pixel is completely manageable.
That is a brilliant way to visualize the core concept. Without those small pixels, there is no big picture. When you are operating at the pixel level, difficult matters literally cease to exist because you are only ever performing one simple action.
I love the theory. I really do. But I have to push back on how this applies to modern reality.
Sure.
Because my stressed out brain immediately says, come on, isn't it incredibly naive to say there are no difficult things in practice?
It sounds naive at first, yeah.
Right, like tell that to someone trying to navigate a massive corporate merger or managing a chronic health crisis. There are objectively complex, high-stakes systems in our world.
Well, what's fascinating here is that Sweifeng isn't denying the existence of large-scale challenges or complex systems, like your example of a corporate merger.
Okay.
What he's doing is shifting the locus of human action. He is pointing out that a human being cannot physically or cognitively execute a merger.
Right, because a merger is a concept.
Exactly. A merger is a concept. What a human being actually does is type an email, make a phone call, read one paragraph of a contract. Oh, wow.
The anxiety comes from trying to conceptually lift the entire towering building at once, rather than just laying the single brick in front of you.
So the exhaustion is coming from the mental simulation of the whole project, not the actual physical tasks required to complete it.
Precisely. Even spiritual cultivation, which people treat as this agonizing, lifelong climb, doesn't require massive effort according to the text.
It doesn't. Oh.
No, it just requires a calm and peaceful heart. Being a good person is broken down to base moral pixels. Just be honest. keep your word, and don't take unfair advantage of others.
It's so straightforward.
It is. Even becoming a celestial being, which is like the ultimate spiritual goal in this context, is framed simply as seeking freedom, joy, health, and blessings. He strips away all the mystique of difficulty by grounding everything in the immediate action.
So if life is just a series of pixels, how do we actually paint them daily? Because a philosophy is only as good as its physical practice.
Right.
And when we look at how this text instructs us to interact with our environments, it gets incredibly granular. Yeah, the practice relies on radical presence. The text reminds us that yesterday has passed, another sun rises in the east.
The past cannot be reclaimed.
Exactly. So you must focus on the present. And the present consists of very mundane physical and social actions.
Very mundane. Like, he specifically instructs the reader to brush your teeth, wash your face, clean the courtyard.
And socially, it is just as immediate. Show care for your parents, remind your children to tie their shoelaces, tell your spouse, you look beautiful today.
He goes on to say, read a book, get some work done, jot down some thoughts, stretch your muscles, mend the wall, and block mouse holes.
I love that one. Blocking mouse holes is the perfect physical embodiment of this philosophy. It's a highly specific, unglamorous, but entirely necessary task.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting to me. The author creates this jarring, almost comical contrast.
He does.
He tells the reader to maintain their integrity whether they enter Zhongnanhai, which is the central headquarters for the Chinese government, or the White House. He equates the moral and spiritual requirements of walking into the most powerful political centers on the globe with the simple act of blocking a mouse hole in your wall.
By putting the White House and a mouse hole on the exact same operational plane, the text creates this profound leveling effect.
It's wild to think about.
It really is. It removes the ego from our daily actions. From a neurological standpoint, the brain state required to act with integrity while negotiating a global treaty should be identical to the brain state required to patch a hole in your drywall.
Wait, really? The exact same brain state?
In the context of this philosophy, yes. If you are entirely focused on the present moment, doing the task in front of you to the best of your ability without worrying about the outcome or your social standing, your cognitive load is incredibly low.
You were simply executing.
Yes. The text urges us to focus on your own business, to avoid envying others' happiness, and to refrain from yearning for others' higher status.
It's saying the stress of walking into the White House only exists if you are carrying your ego in with you. Like, if you are just a person walking into a room to do a job, it's no different than walking into a shed to fix a wall.
That ego removal is the whole point. Do not seek fame or recognition, seek only peace, health, and harmony. The text suggests finding contentment in plain meals and mending clothes.
So simple.
If you are true to yourself in your dealings with heaven, earth, and people, you are indeed extraordinary. The consistency in the small things makes you extraordinary, not the scale of the things you attempt.
So patching the wall and blocking the mouse hole keeps our internal world simple. But what happens when the external world tries to shove complexity back into our lives?
That's the challenge.
Because I imagine it's easy to stay grounded until, someone offers you a shortcut.
Yeah.
The text pivots pretty heavily here from what we should do to what we must reject.
Right. The primary traps identified are unearned gain, vanity, and unnecessary conflict. These introduce sudden, massive complexity into a simple life.
They really do.
The author advises us not to waste energy on pointless arguments and to just be quick to say, I'm sorry.
Just dropping the ego and ending the argument. Honestly, that alone could cure half the anxiety on the internet.
Absolutely. It warns that conflicts frequently arise at the table of food and drink, and notes that cheap deals frequently bring trouble.
Which leads to the most striking line in the entire text.
No?
It commands, if you see gold by the roadside, treat it as if it were a cancer virus. Keep your distance.
It is a visceral, incredibly aggressive metaphor.
It really is. And I think this is where a modern listener might just throw their hands up.
Oh, for sure.
Think about our current hustle culture. Finding a cheap deal, or literally finding gold by the roadside. Whether that's an insider stock tip, taking credit for a project to get an unearned promotion, or just finding 20 bucks on the sidewalk.
That's celebrated.
That is the goal. We call that a massive win. So why does Xue use such repulsive imagery? Calling free wealth a cancer virus seems like terrible financial advice.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it sounds counterintuitive until you examine the psychological cost of the windfall. Unearned gain completely disrupts the entire path of small beginnings.
Is that because unearned gain forces you to skip steps?
Yeah.
Like if I suddenly find $10,000, I haven't built the pixels of habit to know how to manage it, so it instantly creates anxiety rather than joy.
That is a huge part of it. Unearned gain invites entanglement. If you take that gold by the roadside, you are introducing a massive variable into your life that you did not build.
Oh, I see.
Suddenly, you have to protect it. You might feel paranoid about who lost it. You invite the envy of others. It breeds greed. The text is warning that cheap deals create invisible debts.
That's a great phrase, invisible debts.
Yeah, you spend more cognitive energy protecting the unearned gold than you would have spent just earning it slowly.
It instantly tangles all the browser tabs again. You were focused on one pixel, and suddenly you have 1,000 new ones flashing red.
Precisely. By firmly refusing what isn't rightfully yours, the text says, spirits will not disturb you. You keep your spiritual house clean.
Right.
It advises that instead of chasing vanity or associating with wrongdoers, we should spend our leisure time differently. Listen to music to refine your temperament. Savor quotes from practical philosophy texts like the Vegetable Roots Discourse or Precepts for Family Management.
Actually, for those who might not be familiar, what are those texts?
Right, so they are classical Chinese texts. The Vegetable Roots Discourse, for example, is essentially a 16th century guide on how to live with quiet humility.
Okay.
The title basically implies that if a person can chew the bitter roots of vegetables, they can accomplish anything. It's an antidote to the pursuit of luxury and vanity.
I love that.
The text suggests filling your time with these enriching, grounding ideas rather than the frantic pursuit of an unearned advantage.
So rejecting that vanity and unearned gold really forces us to confront our own ego. We have to admit we don't need to be special or wealthy. And this leads to what I think is the most challenging and maybe most liberating aspect of this source material. How we view ourselves and how we are supposed to react when tragedy inevitably strikes.
The philosophy demands extreme humility. It urges you to always see yourself as the humblest person in the world.
The imagery is intense. It says, don't be afraid of filth and don't dislike pigsties. It says, let others have the best and actively take the lowest place for yourself.
The mechanism behind taking the lowest place is about ego defense. Think about how much mental energy you spend every single day trying to maintain your social status.
A lot.
Worrying about how you are perceived, if you're being respected enough, if your clothes are right, if your job title sounds impressive. It is exhausting.
Completely draining.
But if you voluntarily take the lowest place, you drop all that armor. There is nowhere to fall. Your ego cannot be bruised because you have surrendered it.
So what does this all mean when we face disaster? Because that changes how we deal with it. The text advises an almost shocking level of calmness. It says, if the sky falls or the earth sinks, just play your tune.
If it rains or your mother wants to remarry, don't be sad or worried.
If your partner leaves or children disappoint you, let it be. It quotes an old saying, as long as there are green hills, there's no need to worry about firewood.
This raises an important question because this is a practice of radical detachment.
I really need to pause here because if you are listening to this and you are going through a divorce or your kids are in serious trouble, telling someone to just play their tune sounds incredibly insensitive.
It does.
Is letting it be just a form of cold apathy? Like, are we supposed to be robots or is it a survival mechanism to keep moving forward?
I am so glad you brought that up because confusing acceptance with apathy is the most common pitfall here. This isn't about being cold. It is a profound recognition of the limits of our control. When a partner leaves, the grief and pain are intensely real. But the suffering, the prolonged agonizing loop of stress, comes from the illusion that we could have controlled them or that we can force them to stay.
So the philosophy cuts the suffering, but doesn't necessarily deny the pain.
Exactly. Shufeng compares life to a journey. He writes that nothing is truly gained or lost. There's no fear of changing to a new vehicle to the new realm.
Just moving forward.
People and circumstances are companions on a journey. And it's crucial to note that this doesn't mean we travel in isolation. The text explicitly highlights the value of connection. It says a tree cannot survive without its bark, and a person cannot be without friends.
It calls true friends the best of treasures.
Yes. A teacher imparts knowledge, but friends help us discuss the Tao, the path, and alleviate boredom. The text assures us that as long as our internal home is intact, we never need to fear loneliness.
That's beautiful.
You love your friends and your partner deeply, but you recognize you do not own them. If they leave, the sky might feel like it's falling, but your only actual task is the present moment. You keep breathing, you keep moving, you play your tune.
You keep painting your one pixel, even if the rest of the canvas is on fire.
Because it is the only thing you actually have the power to do.
So how do we execute this radical acceptance right now? We've traveled through these deep philosophical concepts of ego and detachment, but let's bring it right back down to earth. How exactly does the listener start this practice today?
The imperative is microaction. Abandoning grand, immediate ambitions in favor of taking the absolute smallest, easiest next step.
The text provides this really beautiful sequence of instructions. It says, don't try to move mountains first. Gently wipe away small grains of sand from your eyes.
Don't attempt to push a train first. Remove small grains of sand from your shoes.
Don't think about distant treasures. Manage your small plot of land well. And don't strive to become a celestial being or Buddha. Be a simple, ordinary, reliable person first.
It is about strictly acting within your immediate capabilities.
And I love how remarkably relatable the author makes himself here. He isn't preaching down at us from some mountaintop.
Not at all.
He actively admits his inability to do grand things. He writes, unable to do grand things, I can only focus on the small tasks of writing articles. Complex matters require effort. I prefer the simplicity of writing.
He is practicing exactly what he preaches. He notes that if you are idle, it's better to do something within your capability because working is better than idleness. Accumulate virtue where you can, and don't avoid small efforts.
He is choosing to accumulate his virtue pixel by pixel, article by article. He's managing his own plot of land.
This highlights the incredibly forgiving daily nature of this philosophy. As he writes, yesterday has passed and another sun rises in the east.
It's a fresh start.
You get a fresh start every single morning. The ultimate goal isn't world domination or fixing everything all at once. The goal is simply reaching sunset, having finished the smallest, simplest tasks at hand so that you feel at ease in your heart.
So let's briefly recap this journey we've been on. We started by looking at all those background apps draining your mental battery, and we learned to redefine difficulty as just a stack of simple tasks.
Right.
We learned the mouse hole method, focusing radically on present, mundane tasks, realizing that the cognitive state of doing small things well is the exact same as running the world.
We learn to guard our simplicity by treating unearned roadside gold like a literal virus, to avoid those invisible debts.
We confronted our ego, learning that taking the lowest place protects us from the exhaustion of status defense. We learned that when the sky crashes down around us, accepting our lack of control frees us from suffering, allowing us to just play our tune.
And finally, we discovered how to find peace simply by removing the sand from our shoes.
So, to you listening right now, the next time you feel crushed by the weight of an impossible project or life's chaotic information overload, don't try to push the train. Stop. Just look down and find the absolute smallest grain of sand you can wipe away. Brush your teeth. Tie a shoelace. Paint one pixel.
And as you paint that pixel, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Okay.
If every single person on Earth actually adopted this exact philosophy, if we all abandon our grand ambitions to strictly focus on tending our own small plots of land and doing simple things, would human progress completely halt? Or by giving up those grand designs, would we inadvertently build a perfect utopia entirely free of the wars and conflicts caused by those very same grand ambitions?
Keep your eyes on the pixels and let the big picture take care of itself.